はい、ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。はい、3時になりました。画面をオンにしていただいてよろしいですか。はい、よろしくお願いします。よろしいでしょうか。それでは、スタートしたいと思います。プレイスメントセッションの第2部ですね。イーストアングリア大学からの、セッションという形で、最初にね、ティムさんからお話を聞いていただいて、その後マレン先生という、インターナショナルデベロップメントの教授の方からの、スモールレクチャーがありますので、ぜひ聞いてください。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。Hi, Tim. Would you start your presentation?
Hi, Yumiko.
Hi.
Yes, that will be fine. So, yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very, very pleased to be joining you all today virtually. It's really nice to see all of you there with your cameras ready for this kind of guest lecture and information session this afternoon. So my name is Tim Hubbard. I'm the regional manager for Japan at the University of East Anglia. So my main role at the university is to be able to speak to students like yourself that are thinking about coming to the UK and maybe considering doing a course at the University of East Anglia. So I'm here to kind of guide you through the process, answer any questions you might have, and today give an introduction to the University of East Anglia. As part of the session this afternoon, I'm going to give a brief overview of the university. So I'm going to talk through some of the main features of the university and some of the experience that previous NIC students have had when they've joined us at UEA. After that, we're very lucky to be joined today by Dr. Maren Duvendack from the School of International Development, who is going to give a guest lecture and a bit of a taster session for international development, which is one of the very popular subjects at University of East Anglia. So I've got a presentation to share. I'm just going to share my screen now. Yumiko, could you let me know when it's visible for students, please?
Yeah. Yes, it was sharing.
It is in full screen mode?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So yes, I believe you can all see the screen now. So yeah, I'm just going to talk through for maybe 10, 15 minutes just about the University of East Anglia and some of our key features and why it might be a really good option for your university choice if you decide to continue your undergraduate education in the UK. So as I mentioned, my name is Tim. I'm the regional manager for East Asia, looking after the students from Japan in their consulting, in being able to find the right course and the right university for them. I'm based in Norwich, so I'm speaking to you live from Norwich in the UK. It's early in the morning today. It's an early start for me. It's around 7 a.m. At the moment. Normally, I would be going out to Japan at this time of year or maybe later in the year. So although we're having to do the session virtually today via Zoom, I'm very hopeful that in the future, maybe in next year, I'm going to be able to come to NIC, come to visit you guys and maybe have some individual appointments to speak to you as well. So for this section of the day, we're going to talk through why the University of East Anglia is a very popular choice with students from Japan and a very popular choice with students from NIC as well. And when I speak to the students that enroll at the university, and I ask them, why did you choose the University of East Anglia when you've got all these university choices you could choose? Why is it that UEA was the choice that you finally made? There's normally 5 key reasons that students tell me. Firstly, it's the ranking and the reputation of the University of East Anglia. Then it's life in the beautiful city of Norwich. It's our big, green, beautiful campus. It's the Japanese community that we have on campus and the links that University of East Anglia has with Japan. And then it's the wide range of different undergraduate courses we have in different subject area with very highly customizable programs as well. So I'm going to talk through these areas in a little bit of detail. So firstly, you probably have seen our kind of ranking and maybe the university's reputation. Now in the UK, there's 3 main ranking systems that we're using: the Complete University Guide, the Guardian ranking, and the Times Higher ranking. These are the 3 most common and most popular ranking systems used in the UK. Now, different ranking systems will assess different factors. They've got different weightings in between how they get their university rankings. And no ranking system is complete. It's not like a football game where everybody plays each other and at the end of the table, you have a very clear ranking. This one is better than this one. It doesn't really work like that. Rankings go up and down. They're very subjective. And sometimes it can be very difficult to work out why this university is ranked in this way. So when you're looking at rankings and factoring this into your kind of overall decision, if this is important or not, my advice would be that, yes, it is important, but it's not the only thing, and the rankings will go up and down. If you look at University of East Anglia, we're quite highly ranked across the different rankings in the UK. If you look at Complete University Guide and Times High, we're 22nd and 27th respectively. And if you look at our overall ranking over the last 10 years, so our average ranking from that time, you can see we're in the top 30 in all of the main UK ranking systems. But as a student, as an international student, you've got options for university all around the world. I don't know if you know how many universities there are in the world, but I believe there's over 2,500 universities in the world that you could go to. And the University of East Anglia is very proud of its world ranking, where you can see we're in the top 200 out of all of the universities in the world. We're currently 182nd in the Times, and over the last 10 years, we're in 178th in the Times. As well as our ranking, 2 of the other things that are really, really important for a university is the quality of the research and the quality of the teaching. So if you look at our research output in the Times Higher Research Excellence Framework, UEA was number 10. So that's the quality of the research that our leading academics are performing across the university. For our teaching, we've been awarded the TEF Gold Award. So the TEF Gold is an exercise from the UK government looking at the teaching quality across all the UK universities. So obviously gold is the best category, a little bit similar to in the Olympics. You have the gold category, silver category, and the bronze category. But in the Olympics, you only have one person that's going to get that gold medal, or one team that's going to get that gold medal. In this TEF, it's a little bit different. They put the universities in the categories of gold, silver, and bronze based on the teaching quality in those universities. So UEA being awarded the TEF Gold doesn't mean we're the best university for teaching, but it means we are in that top category. The second reason that students choose us is our beautiful University of East Anglia campus. So the UEA campus is located about 20 or 25 minutes outside the beautiful city of Norwich. We have this big, green, wide, vast, open, beautiful campus for students to enjoy. So almost all of the accommodation and then all of the teaching is located here on the same UEA campus. So we have a big, beautiful lake, which is on the left-hand side of the screen on the map. This will take you around 30 minutes or 45 minutes to walk around. So if you're ever feeling any stress from your classes, if you ever have lots of homeworks and assignments you need to do, and you're feeling stressed, my advice is just to go take a walk around the lakes. It's really going to help you to relax. It's something that I do quite a lot when I'm at work as well. Then you've got the main grass area, the lawn, the park area, coming from the lake into the university. And then you've got the main kind of university buildings. You've got the spine of university buildings here. And this is the main accommodation for students. It's on the left-hand side of the map. And this is our sports park, which is our sporting facilities, which is all available on the same place in the same UEA campus. So this is what it looks like. Everything here is available for students, and it's got all the facilities and everything that you need to have a really enjoyable student life and a study experience while you're studying with us. So as you can see on the map here, we've got the lake on the left, then the main park area, then all of the teaching and accommodation buildings, and then the sports park area on the right. University of East Anglia was established in the 1960s. So we started our journey in 1963. And then since that, the university has kind of grown and grown and grown and grown over time. So some of the buildings are the original ones from the 1960s, but many of the buildings, we've got lots of new buildings and new facilities, lots of modern buildings and facilities for you as well. So the campus has really grown and grown, and it's one of the main things that students really love about studying with us. And as I mentioned, university is located about 20 to 25 minutes outside of the city of Norwich. And this is what our city looks like. Norwich is considered a medium-sized city by UK standards. So that means it's not too big and it's not too small. Now, Norwich may be a city you've heard of before, or it might be the first time that you've heard of the city of Norwich. But actually, Norwich used to be the second largest city in the UK. So London has always been the biggest city in the UK, and I imagine it probably always will be. But over time, over history, the status of the second largest city has changed. And Norwich used to be the second biggest city in the UK. Over time, other cities in the UK have grown, and now Norwich is considered a medium-sized city. But we've really kept the history, and the important history of Norwich is really preserved in the city. So when you're walking around the city, you can just see the history everywhere. It's a beautiful city. It's a friendly, safe, welcoming, and fantastic city for you to be based in when you're doing your undergraduate studies. This is the center of the city. So you can see there the castle. So this is Norwich Castle, which has been standing there for over 1,000 years. In the middle of the city, we have the market. So this is Norwich Market. And again, this is a very important historical place in the city. And this market has been trading for over 800 years. So this is right in the center of Norwich. It's still there today. And then you can get lots of nice food. You can get some clothes and some tourist things and all kinds of nice things in that market as well. So normally that's the main destination students have got when they first arrive in the UK. There's a river that goes through the city and then lots of lovely houses. So this is another really place to walk around the city. But Norwich is a city, you know, I've talked quite a bit about the history of the city, but it's not just a historical place. It's not just a tourist destination. It's also, you know, a large enough city for you as a student to have all of the, you know, facilities, kind of the shops, restaurants, coffee shops, shopping, everything you need is all available here in the city as well. So I think this picture really sums up the environment and sums up the city. You can see on the left, the Forum, which is where Norwich's Central Library is, and there's some nice restaurants, coffee shops in there. And then you've got your church right on the right, which has been standing there for hundreds of years. So Norwich is a really great mix of the old and the new. In terms of our location, you can see here we're in the east of England. So the University of East Anglia gets its name from the region, East Anglia. That's where Norwich is based. And now Norwich is the largest city in this region. Now, if you've got some friends studying in other cities or you want to go travel around the UK, it's very convenient to do so. There's a direct train that goes across the country, goes across to Nottingham, Sheffield, Manchester, Liverpool. So if you've got friends in other cities, obviously really, really convenient for them to come and see you and for you to go and see them as well. We're quite close to the seaside, so we're very close to the Norfolk coast. That's the area just around East Anglia. So if you want to go to the beach, if you want to go see some of the small seaside resorts and the seaside towns in England, very convenient to be able to do that as well. Now, if you fly into the UK, flights from Tokyo, you can go to Norwich via many different routes. You can change in the Emirates and go on the Emirates flight, or you can do on the Qatar Airlines, or you can do on many different flights that change in Europe. But we think that the best route is to be able to go from Tokyo to Amsterdam, and then you go Amsterdam directly into Norwich. So if you're going to fly from Japan to here, it's going to take you about 13 or 14 hours, depending on which route you take. But if you do have the opportunity, we really recommend you to arrive at Norwich International Airport. If you can't arrive in Norwich, then we recommend you to either go to London Heathrow or London Stansted, where we can pick you up, or you can take the boat, the coach or the train to the campus here. Apart from that, another reason that students have liked us, another reason we're very popular with students from Japan, is our relationship with Japan over many years. So University of East Anglia has a very special relationship with Japan. It's something we're very proud of, and it's something we're going to preserve for a very, very long time. As part of that, we have over 18 Japanese university partners. We're offering research programs or study abroad programs. But University of East Anglia is also a hub for British students, for European students, for other international students that have an interest in Japan. We have a Center for Japanese Studies here, where we have Japanese degrees, and we have an MA Interdisciplinary Studies focusing on Japan as well. On the campus, we also have, in the city, we also have the Sainsbury Institute for Japanese Arts and Cultures, which is a real hub for Japanese culture and art in the city. What that means is if you do choose the University of East Anglia, you'll be able to make lots of friends with other students from Japan as well. I'm sure there'll be quite a few NIC students that will come to the University of East Anglia in 2022. So you'll obviously make some friends with your current classmates, but you then also go into a wider society and you'll be part of the Japanese Student Society on campus, either formally through the Japan Society or informally just through the network you have with other Japanese students as well. As part of that, you can see we're in the top 10 for the top 10 UK university for Japanese students enrollment. So that's out of all of the UK universities. Looking at the number of students from Japan that join us, UEA is actually in the top 10. So you'll be able to make lots of friends with other students from Japan, but of course you'll be going into a very diverse international environment in the university as well. And UEA and NIC have a very fantastic relationship as well. We've worked together with Yumiko, with Michael, with the teachers and with the team at NIC for many, many years. So we've got a lot of experience with NIC, and we've had students doing this pathway every year of going from their NIC foundation to enrolling at the University of East Anglia. We offer a lot of support to the NIC, and we offer a lot of support to you as well. So if you'd like to speak to us one-to-one, if you think, oh, this is quite interesting, but I want to talk about my own situation or my own major in more details, then we do offer the support and guidance for you. So you can book an appointment to speak to me or speak to Maren or speak to other colleagues in the University of East Anglia. Normally we'd be going out to Japan, so I'm hoping to be able to see you later on, maybe in kind of March, April time 2022. I hope to be able to come and see you, come visit the college. We also have a very fast and efficient admissions process between UEA and NIC. So we know that applying for universities in the UK is a little bit difficult, you know, going through a UCAS application, going through all the steps you need to be able to go through to be able to progress onto a UK university. But we've arranged a lot of things with NIC, lots of processes with NIC to make it fast and easy for you to be able to get admission into the university. We've got students from NIC previously going into lots of different areas in the university. So international development has tended to be the most popular, but we've had students going to business related degrees, psychology, sociology, economics, and lots of different subjects as well. This year, we've welcomed 10 new students from NIC to join us in 2021. And you can see the wide range of different majors that students have gone on to here. So quite a few have gone into international development, and then you can see some of the other subject areas that students have gone to as well. The entry requirements for NIC that we're looking for, so kind of your target, what you should be aiming for, depends on the major that you choose at the university. But we basically translate it across from the UK A-levels, which you'll be able to see on the website. So if you go to the course page for any of these programs, you can see the A-level requirements, and then we translate that across to the grades that you need at NIC. So for most of you, you're looking at 65%, 70%, or 75%, depending on the subject that you choose. We're expecting you to have a good level of mathematics for all programs. So we're expecting you to have high school maths or 50% in the NIC quantitative methods module if you choose that. And English language, we need IELTS 6.0 overall. There's normally a UEA NIC scholarship program as well. We're just finalizing our scholarship offerings at the moment, but over previous years, we've had a special scholarship for NIC students, which we're expecting to retain in 2022. There's also scholarships that you can apply for. So we're going to release the details for these very soon. And then there's going to be some scholarship that you'll be able to make an application for and be able to get a scholarship from the university. So at the moment, we're just finishing and finalizing our scholarship scheme for 2022. And we'll let you know as soon as it's ready. It should be within the next couple of weeks. Across the university, you can see some of the courses that students have gone into before, but it's really a wide range of courses across the university. So no matter what it is you're interested in, I'm sure you're going to be able to find the right course for you at the University of East Anglia. Some of the most popular areas for students are in the social sciences, so international development, economics and business. In the arts and humanities, film, television, media is popular, as is literature, drama, and creative writing. There's students going to sciences as well, with environmental science being a popular option as well. But no matter what you want to study, I'm sure you're going to be able to find the right course that meets your kind of study interest. Many of the courses will have the option for a year abroad. So that is where you would have 1 year in another country. So you're already an international student doing a program abroad by coming to the UK, but you might consider doing year 3 abroad in another country. So you could go to a country in Europe, you could go to America, or you could go to another country all around the world to do your year abroad program if you'd like to do that. So when you see the degree title with a year abroad, that means you're doing the 3rd year in another university in another country. So you have an even greater kind of study abroad experience. You might also see with a year in industry or with a placement year. So if you see your program and it says, for example, BSc Economics with a year in industry, then that means you're going to do 1 year of work experience in year 3. Instead of doing the year abroad, you do 1 year in industry or 1 year as a placement year. Our Career Central team at the university will help you with this to find the right placement opportunity. So you could have the opportunity to spend 1 year working in the UK between years 3 and year 4. So you could just do the plain degree, which is the 3 years program, which is a fantastic option for you, or you could do the with a year in industry, or you could do with a year abroad as well. But today's focus is going to be on international development, and I'm about to hand over to Dr. Maren from the School of International Development, who's going to talk through a kind of sample lecture in the subject of international development, and we're going to be able to see what questions you might have at the end as well. For the International Development School, we have a wide range of different degrees as well. So many students will choose just the BA International Development, which is probably the most broad in the most amount of optional modules you can choose. Or you can be more specific and do international development with something else, for example, with economics or with media or with the environment. So if you are interested in international development, have a look at the different options we have available, and that will help you to be able to choose what might be the right area for you and what might be the right major choice for you as well. Our School of International Development is a very prestigious school. It's the highest ranked of all the University of East Anglia schools, being ranked number 9th in the world in the QS World Rankings. And we're the first UK university to offer international development degrees. This is normally the most popular course with Japanese students. And I'm going to hand over now, I think, to Dr. Maren Duvendack, who's going to talk a little bit more about the program and then do a guest lecture on some of the kind of major topic in international development. So Maren, can I hand over to you?
Sure, thanks very much, Tim. Great. Great, okay. So do I continue on that slide? No, this is the end of your slide, is it?
That's right, yeah.
Great, okay, excellent, super, great. Okay, so yeah, hello everybody. It's lovely to virtually connect with you again. Usually, as Tim said, we would be in Japan and actually meet you face to face and kind of run you through what UEA has on offer, and especially the School of International Development. But sadly, this is all virtual at the moment. So anyway, my name is Maren Duvendack. I'm an associate professor in the School of International Development at UEA. I'm one of the economists in the school. So you may have learned already that the School of International Development is very multidisciplinary. So that means that it's not just economists that are at the school, but also political scientists, anthropologists, sociologists, climate scientists. So a range of people from lots of different academic disciplines are part of the School in International Development. And we're all coming together because we're very passionate about alleviating poverty, improving sustainability, combating climate change, empowering women, and all these other things that are very important these days. So what I thought I'd start doing first is to show you a very short 2-minute video to actually explain what international development is. Because often there is a confusion as to how international development is different from international relations. Okay, so bear with me while I try to work out how to share my video, because I always have a lot of screens open. Hang on, I'll try this one. You just have to tell me. I hope this works. Can everybody see my video screen? I hope so. Tim, could you just confirm whether you can see that screen?
Hi, Maren. Yes, we can see it.
Great. Okay, and maybe just confirm also if the audio doesn't work, that I'm aware of that. But so I start off with that video, and hopefully you can hear it as well.
International development is about the world and poverty and inequality. It's about 3 million people moving to cities every week, and why more people have a mobile phone than a toilet. And it's about how this planet is getting so hot. Sometimes it's about people risking their lives to travel to faraway countries. Government providing decent roads, electricity, and a clean environment. And it's about people demanding their rights all over the world. International development has lots of acronyms. But it's also about all of us. Can we get to hospital when we're sick? Can we go to school? Will we have enough to eat this year? And it's about reducing poverty. And sometimes it's about people getting it wrong. It's about finding out where power lies and how we perceive the world. And it's about some good news too. International development is big and complicated, and not everybody will agree about it. Sometimes it might not even be called international development at all. But ultimately, international development is about the world and how we can make it better and fairer for everybody.
Great. Okay, so I hope that worked. I'm just trying to stop sharing that screen now. Which
that worked very well. We could
Great,
all hear
excellent.
it, so it was fantastic.
Okay, I just seem to have lost now my abilities to stop sharing my screen. But okay, hang on a minute. That's very strange. Okay, I'm trying to work this out again. This is a problem of having too many screens open, actually. Okay, I'm trying to stop that. Okay, hang on. Okay, great. Sorry, I have a slight problem. I'm unable to unshare my screen for whatever reason because I've lost my meeting controls.
Maren, if you hover over the very top of the screen, it might come down. It had the same thing for me.
All right, is it? Okay. See, I'm not using Zoom that much anymore, so I'm slightly lost with this one. Sadly, okay. Stop share. Okay, great. And the slight challenge is that I have two screens I'm operating from, so that doesn't make life very easy, is it? Okay, I think I've sorted that now. So I think this video has hopefully given you a bit of an idea of what international development is and how it may actually be different from international relations. So what I will do now is to share another screen. This time hopefully is my lecture slides. And then give you a bit of a taster of the sort of lectures that you can expect should you decide to study with us. So again, bear with me while I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. Great. Okay, share again. So hopefully you can see this, and this is in presentation mode, hopefully as well.
It is. It looks very good. I think it's yes.
Excellent. Thanks for confirming. It all looks different on my end here. Great. Anyway, so let me just maybe for half an hour to 40 minutes to give you a bit of a taster lecture of what you would expect when you come to us. So I would like to talk about, is the world becoming a better place? Okay. And so let me start off with oh gosh. Okay, let me start off with what you can expect from this taster lecture. Okay, so what are we going to do in the next half an hour or so? Okay, so we will first of all analyze the empirical evidence about economic progress over the last centuries. And then we ask the question of what this actually means in terms of poverty. And we try to answer the question whether there is less poverty now than there was a century ago. Okay, and we'll critically assess different ways of answering this question. And we'll also think a little bit about a theoretical framework that's been devised by Thomas Pogge, and that is the one of radical inequality. And I also show you a little bit of a funny experiment that kind of illustrates how people perceive inequality and how they feel when they're being treated in unequal ways. And inequality has become a massively important topic now, because globally there's a lot of inequality, not just in developing countries, but also developed countries. So for example, if you look at Japan, you will also find people who are, slightly poorer than others. If you go to Ueno Park in Tokyo, there you often see a lot of homeless people. So inequality is not just a domain of developing countries, but is increasingly found in developed countries as well. So I'll talk through this kind of theoretical framework. Okay, so let's start off though, first of all, with the empirical evidence on the economic growth globally over the last 2 millennia, really. So on this graphic here on your screen, what you see is the world gross domestic product over the last 2,000 years. Okay, so on the horizontal axis, you can see the years. That's year 0 to year 2015. Okay, so that's roughly a 2,000 time period. And then on the vertical axis, the axis that's going from the bottom to the top, you can see US dollar volumes. Okay, so it's like $20 trillion, $40 trillion, and so on. Okay, so then you see a line, a blue line in this graphic that basically indicates what the gross domestic product looked like over the last 2,000 years. And you can see that for the first, well, I would say 1,800 years, the GDP, the gross domestic product, was pretty much zero. So there was no meaningful economic growth globally for the first, say, 1,800 years, okay? So only then towards the end of the graphic, when we're like around, you can say maybe 1800, 1900s, you can actually see that there's an uptick in the blue line, that actually we can see some sort of meaningful economic growth. And then you can see that this blue line is shooting up almost vertically, indicating rapid economic growth, especially over the recent maybe 100, 200 years, okay? So this graphic illustrates that it seems we've had a lot of economic growth very recently compared to the last 2,000 years, okay? So that, you could argue, is a positive trend. So now let's look closely at what this gross domestic product looks like per capita, okay? So per person in the population of a country. So this is a country breakdown. So again, the horizontal axis, you see GDP per capita in 1960. And then in the vertical axis, you see the same measure, but in 2014. And you can then again see a blue line that kind of cuts across this graphic. And you can see on the left from that blue line, where you see all these dots, each dot represents a country. So all of these countries above that line, they had positive economic growth. So these countries, and that's really the majority of the countries on this globe, they seem to have experienced a positive economic growth between 1960 and 2014. Okay, so that looks really quite positive and good again. There are only very few countries that are below this blue line, on your right-hand side of the screen, that actually had negative growth, okay? And you can see that a lot of these countries are actually located in Africa, Central African Republic, Niger, Madagascar, Congo. These countries seem to have struggled a little bit, and we know these countries as being particularly poor. But otherwise, the majority of, sorry? The majority of the, sorry, I just heard a sound on the microphone. So the majority of the countries seem to have done really well and experienced positive economic growth. So great, so we've set the scene here. We've understood that it seems there has been a lot of economic growth over the last, especially 50 years for most countries. But again, we've learned that this economic growth has been fairly recent in the kind of overall history of this globe since we started measuring gross domestic product. Okay, so let's now see what happened to poverty around a similar time period. Okay, because we're very well aware economic growth has happened, great, So what about poverty? Because a lot of people argue that there is a positive causal relation between economic growth and declines in poverty. Okay, so let's see whether that is actually true, that there is indeed a positive causal link between the two. So on this graphic now, you can see on the screen here, you see information on absolute poverty. Again, we have the horizontal line here, which depicts the years. So that's 1820 we're starting with this time, taking it up to 2015. So that's roughly a 200-year time period that we're looking at. And then on the vertical line, going up from the bottom to the top, we have the share of the world population living in absolute poverty, expressed in percentage points, okay? So 0% up to 100%. Great, so first I should also explain what absolute poverty means. So there are different poverty lines that use different thresholds, and hence on this graphic, you see 3 lines, because they all use slightly different poverty lines. So for example, the yellow line, you find that that has been drafted using the poverty line of $2 per day. So if you live on less than $2 per day, then you're classed as living in absolute poverty. And if you now look at this yellow line, you can see that in 1820, I mean, 94% of the world's population at the time, they actually lived in absolute poverty, okay? And then you can see that while we're progressing year on year, you know, this poverty line has, or this graphic has reduced, meaning that people living in absolute poverty, that has also reduced. So if you look at the year 2000, you see the percentage figure of 52%, indicating that it's 52% of the world population still living in absolute poverty, meaning on less than $2 per day. So that's a positive trend, isn't it? Because the yellow line is going down. You know, in 1820, 94% lived in absolute poverty, and now around 2000, 52% lived in absolute poverty. So you could say, great, at the same time, there was economic growth happening. So that seems now that this poverty has been declining. And then if you use other poverty lines or thresholds, for example, the red line on your screen, the red line is looking at extreme poverty. So that means people living on less than $1 per day. So even here you see a positive trend that in 1820, 84% of the world's population lived on less than $1 a day. And this share dropped to 24% in the late 1990s. So you could again argue that's quite an achievement, that we've considerably reduced poverty in the time period of roughly 200 years. And again, this nicely aligns with the previous 2 graphics you've seen where economic growth has risen. So on the surface, it looks like there is a positive causal link between economic growth and poverty reduction, okay? And then just to maybe say on the final black graphic or line you can see on your screen, there's not that much data that has been collected because it's a different poverty line again. And this looks at people living on less than $1.90 per day, okay? So again, a slightly different poverty line or threshold has been used. So you will see this variation in poverty lines. So some poverty lines are looking at people living at less than $1 per day, others looking at living on less than $1.90 or $2 a day, okay? So, but on the whole, irrespective of the poverty line or poverty threshold you're using, you can see a positive trend with poverty seemingly declining over years, okay? And that correlates then with economic growth accelerating. Okay, so let's now see what this looks like if we look at the share of population in different continents, okay, or different world regions. So we've looked at the graphics now, looking at the world, you know, lumping everything together. But obviously, poverty varies depending on the region you live in, right? So, and this is what this graphic is all about. It looks at a slightly shorter time period. It looks at 1987 to 2013. And again, it looks at the percentage of people living in poverty, but disaggregated by region. So you can see, for example, the blue line at the top of your screen, it indicates that a lot of the people living in sub-Saharan Africa are still seem to be living in poverty. And the poverty line we're using here is the one of $1.90 per day. Okay, so these people in sub-Saharan Africa, pretty much, if you look at 2013, 40% of people in sub-Saharan Africa still live on less than $1.90 a day. Okay, so that's almost half the population. Again, you can see that this share has come down. In 1987, over 50% of the population in sub-Saharan Africa lived on less than $1.90 a day. And this has then slightly accelerated and increased, actually. And you can explain the slight uptick on poverty, maybe with global economic conditions. You know, there was a 1998 global financial crisis, you know, and we had another financial crisis in the 2000s. So, you know, that could maybe explain why some of the poverty lines or the graphics here are having a slight uptick. But on the whole, you could see some sort of decline in poverty in sub-Saharan Africa. But still, even today, we have more than 40% of the population living in extreme poverty. So this is obviously not acceptable, right? And then if you look at the other regions, you can see starker trends in terms of decline in poverty. So look at South Asia, again, you know, a classic hotbed of poverty. So that is your slightly, what is it, orangey line here, peach colored line, okay? So in South Asia, in 1987, slightly less than half of the population in South Asia lived in extreme poverty. And they have made massive advances in reducing poverty. And you can see in 2013, it's just you know, maybe 15% of the population in South Asia is living in extreme poverty. It's still a lot of people, but if you can see the trajectory over a relatively short period of time, say, you know, 30 years or so, this is quite an achievement in terms of poverty reduction. And you can see similar trends in, for example, East Asia and the Pacific. I mean, look at that. That's the red line, which is very dramatic. You know, 60% of the people in East Asia and the Pacific lived in extreme poverty in 1987. And then look at how the development of this red line, you know, it's just maybe 5% of the people in East Asia and the Pacific still live in poverty, extreme poverty in 2013. But that's an extreme decline from over 60% down to just, you know, 5% or so. So you can see that in many regions of this world, we have seen a massive decline in poverty, but there are still some regions in this world that are still hotbeds of poverty, where there are still extreme problems in terms of lifting people out of poverty and ensuring that they have a sustainable livelihood, okay? And this is what we try to do in the School of International Development. We try to find solutions to these persistent problems of poverty that are still dominating some regions in this world. Okay, so what we've learned now is that there has been economic growth, there has been an overall global decline in poverty, but this decline in poverty varies by region, okay? So now, let's have a look at why there are still some perceptions in this world as to why poverty is still very high, even though we've now seen that the statistics indicate poverty has decreased. So there has been a survey that's conducted on some sample of British highly educated individuals. So, and they were asked, in the last 30 years, the proportion of the world population living in extreme poverty has increased, remained more or less the same, or decreased. Okay, so that was the question that's been asked to highly educated British people. Okay, so, and interestingly, despite the fact that we've just learned that poverty seems to have decreased according to the statistics, 55% of the sample of British individuals, they have actually said that they think poverty has increased. So that's quite a stark message, right? That it seems the perception of people is that despite the fact that poverty has decreased, according to the statistics, a lot of people seem to feel that poverty has actually increased. And then 33% of these surveyed individuals, they said poverty has remained more or less the same, and only 12% have said that poverty has decreased. So that's slightly puzzling that we have this survey result, which kind of contradicts what we now know about economic growth and poverty decline. So let's look at why a lot of these people that have been surveyed have the feeling that poverty has actually increased or more or less remained the same. Okay, so because that's quite a stark message. So let's see now how we can explain this. So, well, one reason of why these surveyed people have the perception that poverty has actually increased is maybe that they look at different statistics. So remember the first few graphics I showed you, they had percentage figures, right? The percentage share of the population living in poverty. So now on this graphic, what you see here is the actual number of people that are living in extreme poverty, okay? So rather than percentages, we're counting actual people. So that's why what you see here, first of all, is on the horizontal axis, again, the time period, 1820 this time to 2015. But on the vertical axis, rather than having percentage figures like 0% to 100%, you see an actual numbers like 1 billion, 2 billion, up to 7 billion. Okay, so what you see here then is the share of or it's kind of the number of people still living in extreme poverty. Again, extreme poverty here is living on less than $1.90 a day. So and if you look at the actual numbers, you can see the red and the green bits on this screen, right? So that first of all shows you that the world population has increased tremendously between 1820 and 2015. So in 1820, the population living on this planet has been around 1 billion. And these people were extremely poor, as we know from the previous graph. 94% of the world population lived in poverty. So that's 1 billion people, living in poverty. But you can also see that over time, the world population has grown. And this is what you can see here with the green line shooting up to almost 7 billion. So between 1820 and 2015, the world population has grown from 1 billion, roughly, to over 7 billion. And will continue to grow as a population on this planet, okay? So, of course, if you then see the poverty levels, you can see in the red graphic here that the actual number of poor people has not changed an awful lot. In fact, it has increased between the 1950s and the 2000s before declining in 2015. So the actual number of poor people is still around 1 billion very poor people on this planet. It's just that the percentage share is different because, of course, the population has increased. So if you look at the percentage, you think poverty has declined because the overall share of the population has increased. So the poor people, they're still hovering around 1 billion very poor people, but in percentage terms, this is a lower percentage, but not in actual numbers, okay? So in that sense, you have to be careful when you look at statistics. You have to be careful of what these statistics express. Earlier slides have indicated percentages. And when you look at the percentages, you can see a very clear downward trajectory of poverty in terms of share of the population, the world population. But looking at the actual numbers, the story looks very different, as you can see on this graphic, because the actual number of poor people is still more than 1 billion very poor people living on less than $1.90 a day, okay? It's just in percentage terms, it doesn't look quite so bad because the overall population has dramatically increased, especially from the 1950s onwards, okay? So maybe that's why, this is one explanation why some people still perceive or have the impression that poverty has actually increased, because they're looking at statistics like this, which indicate that we still have 1 billion very poor people, okay? And that has not much changed over the last 150 years or 200 years. Okay, so let's look at other explanations for why people may still think that poverty has actually increased. So this graphic here shows you that poverty is actually concentrated in very specific areas and contexts. So I just highlight 2 of these issues here, and that is looking at children in poverty and also looking at people living in rural areas. So you can see here, and I've kind of highlighted this kind of a red kind of bubble. So if you look at the share of children living in extreme or moderate poverty, this is very high. So if you globally look at this, there are 44% of children in this world today that live in extreme poverty. And again, you know, extreme poverty is living on less than $1.90 a day. So, I mean, it's quite unacceptable that so many children, close to half of the children on this globe, that they're living in extreme poverty. So, and of course, you know, when, especially in the UK, when you switch on the TV, you may see appeals from NGOs showing you all these pictures of very poor people living in extreme conditions across the globe. That may be an explanation to understand why some of the British people that have been surveyed may feel that poverty has increased, because they see these TV images of very poor children. And these images are real. They are the numbers behind this that you can see here, showing that close to half of the children in this world live in extreme poverty. And if you then look at the share of people living in the rural areas, again, you can see actually that 80% of the people living in rural areas, they're living in extreme poverty. And maybe that's not surprising, because a lot of people, they live off subsistence farming. They have very small farms, and these farms, they can only allow them to survive and look after their own families. But these farms will not produce enough so that they can sell food or anything at the market to actually earn an income. Okay, so really living in rural areas is very, very difficult. It's a very hard life. And you can see from these figures here that 80% of the people globally living in the rural areas are extremely poor. Okay, so again, this is an explanation of why maybe some people think that poverty has actually increased or more or less remained the same, because they're aware that there are pockets on this globe where poverty is persistent. It's persistent among children, persistent among people living in rural areas. Okay, so let's look at further explanations of why actually, before I move on, more evidence actually on child poverty, okay, versus adult poverty, just to kind of reiterate the point that we have a serious problem with child poverty. And this is indicated in these various graphics here. So if you look at children that have an age from 0 to 17, and you look at their poverty, okay, so 19% of children are poor, according to this graphic here, okay? But if you then compare this number with adults that are aged 18 or more, you know, only 9.2% of adults are poor. So there are more poorer children than adults in this world, okay? And if you look further, children are 32% of the global population, but they make up 50% of the total poor, okay? So that's a small share of the population, but a high share of the poor. If you compare that with adults, they're 67% of the population. So the share of adults on this population are 67%, but they only make up 49% of the total poor, okay? So really, child poverty is a lot higher than adult poverty. And that message holds true if you use the different poverty thresholds. So the graphic here at the bottom right of your screen shows you the different poverty lines for children and adults, with the red line being poverty lines or kind of the poverty information for children, and the blue line being the corresponding information for adults. And you can see the red line is above the blue line, indicating that actually for every different poverty line we can use, like $1.90, $3 a day, $5 a day, child poverty always is higher than adult poverty. So we have a real problem here with child poverty. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that child poverty is a lot more severe than adult poverty, okay? So further explanations to why a lot of people may think poverty has increased. Again, so you can see from these graphics and these world maps here that there's one continent that's dominating, right? And that's the African continent. You can see a lot of darkish colors, dark red, or most slightly lighter red on the African continent, okay? And that's indicating that there's a lot of poverty still in many African countries. So the graphic on the left shows you the share of the population that's living in extreme poverty. So they're living on below $1.90 a day, okay? And you can see again, the darker the color, the higher the share of the population living in extreme poverty. And again, you can see, in the middle here, it's the Democratic Republic of Congo. Again, it's a very poor country, but there are also other countries where a large share of the population still lives in extreme poverty. And the graphic on the right looks at the share of population living on less than $3 a day. So slightly different poverty line that's being used here, okay? Slightly higher threshold. But still you can see that a large percentage, in many African countries, a large percentage of the population is still living on less than $3 a day, okay? Most African countries, in fact, where, more than, say, 60% of the population or even close to 100%, if you look at Congo, for example, live on less than $3 a day. Again, these are shocking images and may explain why some people believe that poverty has in fact increased or remained the same, because they're aware that especially in sub-Saharan Africa, poverty is still a real issue with a large share of the population living on very, very minimal income per day. Okay, so again, this is a graphic give you information that actually in some regions, the number of the extremely poor people are actually going up. And the region here that is not doing so well is again sub-Saharan Africa, as kind of indicated in the previous slide. So here again, you see the total population living in extreme poverty, and the breakdown is by region. And on the whole, you can see a downward trend, right? In this graphic, indicating that in many regions, poverty has actually reduced. But if you look at the blue shaded bit at the bottom of your graph, the bottom of your screen, the blue bit indicates that actually there is a slight uptick again in people being poor. And we're looking at the actual number of people again, okay? This is not percentages, but counting the people one by one of how many of them are poor. And you can see again that the African continent is not doing quite so well, that in fact, poverty is not declining, but it's slightly decreasing if you look at the actual number of people rather than percentages again. So this is something that, may explain why people think that poverty is actually increased, because they may see all these images not just of poor children, but also poor children in Africa in particular, okay? And a lot of people have this image of Africa being, in many countries there, they're conflict affected, there's corruption, there's so many political and legal and other problems and environmental problems in these countries that may actually explain why poverty is not really reducing in these places, okay? So again, Africa does not seem to be doing quite so well. Okay, so, and then a final reason of why some people may think poverty has increased is that they may have seen images of India, where actually we still have around 218 million people living in extreme poverty. And globally, actually, we have 746 million people still living in extreme poverty, okay? Extreme poverty here is living on less than $1.90 a day. So it's a large number of individuals. And in many ways, India is still dominating the number of extremely poor people, okay? So even though overall in South Asia, poverty has declined, but that's in percentage terms. If you look at the actual numbers in India, for example, you still have 280 million people that are very poor. So it's really, quite shocking that in India, this is still poverty is still such a massive problem. And on the left-hand side, if you look at the African continent, Nigeria is still having 86 million extremely poor people, which again is quite surprising maybe because Nigeria is quite an economic powerhouse where you have, again, rising inequalities, a lot of very rich people, but also a lot of extremely poor people. And similarly, India, in fact, you may have images of India now being a thriving IT sector, a lot of big corporations now having sprung up in India, a lot of rich people living in India. But again, the gap between the very wealthy and the very poor is rising, okay? And you can see this in these numbers with India still having 280 million extremely poor people. And you could find that surprising because something that you may not know about India is that India is a rising power now. It's transitioning to being an emerging economy, and they invest a lot of money in a space program. So you could argue, why is it that a country with 280 million very poor people is finding money to invest in a space program, which is not necessarily essential for a country to thrive in this world? Very few countries have space programs. So why then, rather than tackling poverty, why then does India feel they need to spend billions on a space program, right? And this can be explained with geopolitical reasons, the threat of Pakistan, trying to be a global power and so on. So, India has aspirations to be a power to be reckoned with, and hence they feel the need to invest a lot of money, I mean, millions of money, in a space program so they can compete with Russia, with the US and other global powers. But still, they have still a lot of poverty in their country. So you could argue, why not spend these millions that they use for a space program? Why not actually spend that money to alleviating poverty? Maybe that's a slightly more worthy cause, right? So this is something a lot of people don't really know about India, that they actually spend so much money on something that's not clearly very essential, and most of the population will not care about the space program or not. But these things are kind of helping to explain, I think, why some people may still have this idea that poverty has actually increased or remained the same rather than reduced, okay? And also, we've also now learned that it pays to critically and carefully actually look at the statistics, whether they use percentages or actual numbers to kind of convey a message, okay? So you have to be a critical consumer of all these different graphics because they show one thing, but if you then change the metrics, they can show something very different as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about inequality now, okay? Because I kind of mentioned this throughout that we have a rise in inequality. You have 200 million poor people in India, 86 million poor people in Nigeria, but you also have probably in India a few million people who are very, very wealthy. So how can you then square this, that there are so many very rich people, but also so many very poor people? So there is an issue around inequality, and that is a serious issue across the globe, not just developing countries, but as I said earlier, developed countries as well. So let's try and understand inequality a little bit better. And we can understand this a little bit better by actually looking at a theoretical framework that has been devised by Thomas Pogge, okay? So he says the world is characterized by radical inequality. So that means that the worse off, the very poor, are very badly off in absolute terms, but they're also very badly off in relative terms. So that means that they're very much worse off than many other people on this planet, okay? And the issue of inequality is that it's impenetrable. So it's very difficult for the very poor to substantially improve their lives, okay? And most of the better off, the richer, never actually experience life at the very bottom of the poverty ladder for even just a few months, okay? And most people really have no idea what it's actually like to live like this, okay? And I think you can only experience this, what it is to live in absolute poverty when you go to certain countries and live like this. For example, after school, I went to India for 3 months to live in a slum. And that's what I really learned, what it is like to live in poverty. You don't have running water, you don't have electricity, it's during monsoon, everything is flooded, and you have health issues to grapple with. So it's very difficult life. And you spend a lot of time just managing small day-to-day things that we in our world take for granted. You flick a switch, light comes on. It's not like this when you live in a shanty town or a slum, okay? So life is very different, and a lot of us have no idea how life is when you live at the very bottom of the poverty line, okay? And it's very difficult for these poor to actually, improve their lives because the infrastructure they operate and live in is just very different to what we're used to. And inequality is pervasive. It's not just one aspect of your life, but all aspects of your life are affected. Your education, your health, your income opportunities, the networks you have. So everything all aspects of your life are driven or affected by inequality, okay? But the good news is inequality is avoidable. So the better off can actually improve the circumstances of the worse off or the very poor without becoming badly affected themselves. If the very rich just share a little bit more of their money through tax or other things, then actually the lives of the very poor can somewhat be improved without actually having a big impact on the very rich. For them, it doesn't matter if they pay 1% more in tax because they've got so much money overall. So for them, it's not a big deal. Okay, great. So I want to show you, and I think we have time for this, a quick experiment. And I have to stop sharing the screen here. And I've learned how to do this now. Hang on. And I've show you a very quick video to just show what it is like to actually experience inequality. Hang on, it's coming. Here we go. I hope that works again. Okay, share. Okay.
Mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs and with birds and with chimpanzees. But with Sarah Brosnan, we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put two capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group. They know each other. We take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the two monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now, if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, that's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is a monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the.
So anyway, so hang on, I'll stop sharing again. So this gives you an idea, this short experiment, what it is like for people to experience inequality. So there are two monkeys, they basically do the same job, okay? They get a rock and they have to return the rock. So they do the same task, but they get paid in different ways. One monkey gets paid a cucumber, which doesn't taste very well, and the other one gets paid in the form of grapes, which are nice and sweet and juicy. So the monkeys, they see what's happening, especially the monkey, he just gets a cucumber. He sees his other monkey doing the same thing, but getting paid in different ways with the sweet grape. So he gets very upset by it. And this is what people experience as well. A lot of poor people who experience inequality, they know what's happening and they feel it's unfair, but they're helpless. They can't do anything. As you could see from the monkey, he was rattling the cage and trying to get out and say, hey, I don't like this. But there's nothing you could do about this, right? So I think there are a lot of poor people who feel that way as well, that they're helpless, they know what's happening to them, they know it's an unfairness, but there's just nothing they can do about it, you know? And that's where governments and larger organizations come in. They then have to interfere and put place in rules where the wealthier actually share some of the wealth they have with the poorer, because the poorer by themselves cannot actually essentially change their lives unless they get a little bit of a helping hand. Okay, so I have a final slide. Hang on, I was just sharing my screen again. I'm hoping that I'll find my screen. Hang on. Just a final slide to wrap up. Hang on. Okay, I just need to share again. Share screen. Great. Okay. Superb. So, so we've talked about inequality. We've seen the little experiment to understand how people perceive inequality and that they are kind of helpless about it. So just to kind of wrap up then this short lecture, what we've learned is basically that there has been tremendous economic growth. So if you look at all these graphics at the beginning of the lecture, you could see that growth has really skyrocketed, especially in recent decades. And there also in parallel an improvement in some of the social indicators. So life expectancy has improved, child mortality, levels of education. So everything has improved a great deal if you just look at these statistics. So to answer the initial question that I posed, is the world becoming less poor? So what is the conclusion here now? So is the world less poor? Has poverty actually gone down? So if you look at the percentage numbers, you know, the percentages of the world population living in poverty, yes, you know, initial statistics have indicated that poverty has tremendously reduced in percentage numbers, okay? But if you look at the actual number of hungry mouths, well, there's only a very slight fall in poverty, if at all, okay? Remember the numbers of, you know, 1 billion people poor in 1820 is still 1 billion poor people now, okay? So not really that much of a change, possibly, if you actually count the number of hungry mouths. But in terms of sufferance, relative to the means available to fight poverty, I think poverty has really increased. You know, inequalities have increased dramatically, okay? And as we could see from the monkey experiment, this is a real problem, okay? And an unfairness to poor people. And if you look at the regions and areas and categories of those left behind, especially children, people living in Africa, people in rural areas, then you can see the trends in terms of poverty are very worrying, that poverty is actually increasing. You know, remember, so many children, more than half, almost half the population of children living in extreme poverty, 80% of the people living in rural areas living in extreme poverty. So that is very worrying here, okay, that some regions and some sections in the population are seriously left behind. And then we've kind of talked a little bit about the Thomas Pogge of radical inequality, which helps us understand maybe some of the things we see on this world, okay, that inequalities are really on the rise. And we also learned from the experiment that a lot of people are very averse to inequality. They know it's an injustice, but they can't really do anything about it. Great, and I think that is the end of my lecture. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm very happy to take any questions that you may have. I think we still have a little bit of time, so thank you. I think it's over to Yumiko again, or Tim.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maren. Yeah, it was a really precious lecture. Still might the same feeling as me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi. May I introduce UE? Tim. Tim.
Hi, Yumiko. Thank you very much, Maren. That was fantastic. Yes, Yumiko, of course, I think we're going to hear from a former NIC student that's actually made the journey to UEA, aren't we? So yes, please, if you could introduce UE, that would be brilliant.
ゆうちゃん。
はい。
じゃあ、スタートしてもらっていいですか？じゃあね、ちょっと、午前中にアメリカの学生さんのセッション、なんていうのかな、経験を語るちょっとスピーチがあったんですが、イギリスは時差があるってことでね、今ここの後に、ちょっとお話を聞かせていただくセッションを持たせていただいています。NIC のファンデーションを終えて、今 UEA でサイコロジーを学んでいる木下ゆいさんになります。ゆいちゃんよろしくお願いします。ゆいちゃんはね、32期生としていて、去年 UEA の方に渡航して、今2年生になっている学生さんになります。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
お願いします。皆さん、こんにちは。NIC32 期生卒業生の木下ゆいです。今はユニバーシティ・オブ・イースト・アングリアというイギリスの国立大学の2年生で、サイコロジー、心理学を専攻しています。で、NIC に入ったときは、トフル、一番最初のトフルが450点ぴったりで、 クラスは IN のクラスからスタートしました。で、皆さん説明は聞いてるかと思いますが、イギリスへの大学の進学っていうのは、UK ファンデーションと、あと IELTS の基準点を満たす必要があるんですけど、NIC に入る時点で私は英語を全く話せなくて、でもその私でも UEA っていうの 70% っていうちょっと高い基準を満たすことができたので、やる気さえあれば、日々 NIC の勉強をしっかりしている皆さんだったら、イギリスの進学についてとか、英語について心配する必要はないのかなと思います。で、今日私が皆さんにお話しするのは、なんで私がイギリスの進学を選んだのか、UEA を選んだ理由と、今イギリスでどんな生活をしているのかなっていうことについて話したいと思います。まず最初に、もともとアメリカ進学をしたかった私がイギリスを選んだ理由は主に3つあります。1つ目は、ユニバーシティに直接入学できることです。私は1年浪人をしてから NIC に入ったので、トランスファーをすることなく直接ユニバーシティに入学できるっていうのはすごく魅力的でした。で、また皆さんは今進路を決めるためにアメリカとかイギリスの大学の説明会に参加してると思うんですけど、当時私もアメリカに進学したくて、アメリカのカレッジの説明を焦点を当てて受けていたんですけど、正直に、これは私の個人的な感想なんですけど、アメリカの大学のその違いがそれぞれ全然わからなくて、どこのカレッジの説明を聞いても同じように思えてしまって、結局どこを選んだらいいのかっていうのが全然わからなくて、進路にすごく悩んでいたんですけど、そんな時にフラッとイギリスの大学の説明会に行ってみたら、そのユニバーシティだからこそ感じられる大学の特色っていうのがそれぞれの大学にあって、どんな大学なんだろうっていうのをリサーチしたりするのもすごく楽しくって、それもイギリスの大学に行こうって思ったきっかけになったと思います。で、2つ目は、一つの分野に特化した専門的な授業を受けられるということです。1年生から自分の専攻した分野、学問について、それだけにフォーカスして勉強できるので、今学びたいことが決まっている方なら、一般教養科目をする必要がないイギリスの大学はすごくいいのかなと思います。3つ目は、アメリカと比べて全体的に治安がいいと思ったからです。イギリスは銃社会ではなくて、もちろん海外なので日本で過ごすよりも気をつけなきゃいけないこと、例えば NIC でよく言われているのは持ち物をしっかり管理したりとか、そういうのは自分で気をつけなきゃいけないことあるんですけど、銃がないっていう、銃が違法だっていう面だけでも治安への安心感があって、それも一つ大学進学先を決める一つの要素だったかなと思います。で、次に私が UEA を選んだ理由についてです。私が、UEA を調べていたときに一番、惹かれた部分っていうのは、UEA の学生満足度の高さで、キャンパス内に生活できるだけの施設っていうのはほとんど全部揃っていて、で、学生満足度のランキングとかを見ても、イギリスの国内でも結構上位に入る大学なので、すごくいいのかなと思いました。で、2つ目は、ノリッジの治安の良さで、リサーチしてるときに、ノリッジが割とイギリスの中でも安全な街っていうのは結構出てきたんですけど、実際に1年間去年過ごしてみて、ノリッジのその年齢層、住んでる人の年齢層っていうのは結構高くって、すごく落ち着いた街だなという印象です。大きい事件もなく、アジア人差別とかも特にされたこともないので、すごく治安が良くて、おすすめなところになってます。で、3つ目は、間違えました。3つ目は、UEA が NIC から進学保証があるっていうのも理由の一つでした。UK ファウンデーションで 70% 以上取るっていうのは結構決して簡単なことではないですし、9ヶ月間、通常9ヶ月間かかるものを約半年ぐらいですごく縮めてギュッとやらなきゃいけないので、そのやる気とか体力とか集中力とかすごく必要なんですけど、進学保証があるっていう面で、その勉強をするモチベーションをキープしてくれたり、あと頑張ろうって思える理由の一つになったので、そこも進学保証のバックアップがあるっていうのはすごく大きいのかなと思います。で、昨日 UEA で同じ学部に通っている NIC の同期になんで UEA にしたのって聞いてみたら、その子は大学の世界ランキングがそれなりに高くて、それも、決めた理由の一つだって言ってました。ね、今、私がイギリスでどんな生活をしているかについてお話しします。この右の画像が、これから今日18日で、これから1ヶ月の私のスケジュールなんですけど、青いところが授業で、ピンクの色のところがアセスメント、課題のデッドライン、提出日になっています。で、今 UEA はオンラインと対面授業のハイブリッド型で授業が行われていて、で、私の学部はちょっとオンラインの方が多い感じになっています。で、毎日たくさんのリーディングリストがあって、1年生の時はすごい読むのにも時間かかりましたし、寝る時間も結構削られてたんですけども、でも NIC の時と比べたらまだ楽というか、NIC があったからこそきついけど、それが楽に感じられたので、皆さんはそんなに心配しなくていいのかなと思います。で、私がこっちに来るまでは知らなかったんですけど、イギリスの大学の6週目はリーディングウィークっていうのがあって、リーディングウィークは、授業がその週にない代わりに、多くの教科書だったり論文を読まなきゃいけない週になっています。で、去年1年生の時はリーディングウィークにアセスメントは被らなかったんですけど、今年は3つぐらいデッドラインがあって、ちょっとそんなに休めないなっていう印象です。で、アセスメントっていうのもフォーマティブとサマティブっていうのに分けられていて、基本的にはサマティブが、グレードを決める対象のアセスメントになっています。で、日常生活についてです。この写真はみんなで友達のバースデーパーティーをした時の写真なんですけど、週末は多くの学生がフラットに集まってパーティーをしてたり、UEA は1フラットに1つプロジェクターが配られていて、それを使ってみんなで映画を見たりとかして、週末はみんなで過ごしています。ね、左の写真は中国人の友人の家に招いてもらって中華料理をご馳走してもらったり、右の写真はタイ人の友人と交流を深めるためにタイ料理食べながら日本とタイでどれだけ文化が違うのとか、そういうことについてみんなでディスカッションしたりした時の写真です。ね、この写真はたまたま私がイギリスでやっていた SNS で日本のことがめちゃめちゃ大好きなスペイン人の男の子と知り合って、仲良くなったので、もう一人 UEA の友達、日本人の友達とノリッツの街を一緒に探索して、この日の午後にもう一人大学にいる日本が好きなイギリス人の男の子も加わって、餃子の作り方を教えてみんなで餃子を作って餃子パーティーをしたりした時の写真です。で、イギリスの食事について多分皆さんあんまりいいイメージがないと思いますし、私もこっちに来てものによっては味がしなかったりとか、何の味かわからないようなものっていうのも確かにあるんですけど、それもまた海外 海外にいるな、イギリスに来たなみたいな実感として感じられるので、そこもいいのかなと思います。で、ほとんどの人が寮で自炊をすると思うんですけど、この写真は友達と自炊をした料理を持ち寄って、みんなでご飯食べた時の写真なんですけど、なんかご飯を作る時、自炊をする時に何か足りない、ものがないとかっていうことは特にないので、なんかそこは心配する、ご飯についてそんなに心配することはないのかなと思います。ね、これはノリッジで一番美味しいって言われてるフィッシュ&チップスのお店なんですけど、そこにエジプト人のお友達と一緒に行って、評判通り結構美味しくって、そのエジプト人の友達がわさびマヨみたいなソースを買ってたんですけど、結構フィッシュ&チップスにあって美味しかったです。他にもノリッジには映画館があったり、ボーリング場があったり、右の写真はトランポリンランドに行った時の写真なんですけど、そんなアミューズメントの施設も割とあるので、友達とシティセンターで遊んだりする時もいいと困らないと思います。ね、この写真は4月の初め、ロックダウンが解けてすぐぐらいの時にロンドンに旅行に行った時の写真で、ノリッジからロンドンまで電車でだいたい2時間ぐらいかかるんですけど、往復で3000円ぐらいで行けて、はい、割と気軽にみんなロンドンに遊びに行けるのかなと思います。で、ロンドンは本当に街並みが綺麗で、なんかいろんなものが、ノリッジと比べたらもうすごく大都市なので、いろんなものがあって、2泊3日で行ったんですけど、全然回りきれなかったので、冬休みにまた友達と行けたらいいねなんて計画を立てたりしています。で、イギリスはもうロックダウンも今解けていて、コロナの影響もあまりなく、とても自由に過ごすことができますし、国全体があまり大きくないので、前回の夏休みではスコットランドとかウェールズに夏休みに旅行に行ってた友達もいましたし、今年の冬はアイソレーションなしで行ける、ヨーロッパの国もいくつかあって、なので長いお休みとかの時にイギリス留学だけじゃなくてヨーロッパの他の国にも気軽に旅行できたりするのもイギリスの魅力の一つかなと思います。短い時間だったので今日はイギリスとか UEA の魅力について全てをお話しすることはできなかったんですけど、これをきっかけに皆さんがイギリスの大学に興味を示していただけたらなと思います。最後に皆さんにとって進路を決めるっていうのは、それによってこの先どんな留学生活が送れるかに関わるすごく大切で、大きな決断だと思うんですけど、自分でよく大学をリサーチして、よく考えて、ここを選んでよかったなって思える国と大学を見つけてみてほしいなと思います。それはすごい難しいとは思うんですけど、この決断もまた皆さんにとって成長をさせてくれるきっかけになると思うので、皆さんが自分に合った大学に出会えるように遠くからですが祈っています。以上です。
はい、ゆいちゃんありがとう。
ありがとうございます。
はい、ここでね、ティム先生も含めて、UEA のことについてだとか、Q&A セッションで、お話ししてもらえる時間なんですけど、何か質問とかありますか？ティム先生に、UEA 全体のことであれば、ティム先生に聞いていただいて、ゆいちゃんに個人的とかっていう話であれば、ぜひ聞いていただければと思います。ゆいちゃん、この後授業なんでね、サクッと。はい。はい、早めに何かございます？大丈夫なのかな？質問とかある？はい、どうぞ。
すいません。
はい、萌えちゃんかな。
1A の飯島です。イエさんに質問したいんですけど、学費の他に月、どのくらい生活費がかかってるのかも知りたいです。
だいたい食費が私は2万ちょっとぐらいに抑えていて、あとは、寮のお金は、寮どれくらいだったかな。寮はちょっと忘れちゃったな。7万6千円とかだったのかな。そのくらいで、あとは友達と遊んだり、必要なもの買ったりかな。そんな感じです。
ありがとうございます。
はい。
はい。大丈夫かな。2万円って言ったらかなり抑えてらっしゃると思うんで、自炊必要だと思います。お料理を覚えてからアメリカ行きましょう。はい。他にはいかがですか？
すいません。大丈夫ですか？
はい、どうぞ。
ゆいさんに質問なんですけど、バイトとかって周りの方ってどのくらいしてるのかとか、あとはどういう、ジャンルのをしているか教えていただきたいです。
去年はロックダウンもあって、あんまり日本人雇用のバイトとかはあんまりなくって、あと、周りにもバイトしてる子は一人もいなかったです。なんか大学院生とかの子はしてましたけど、ある程度英語がもう喋れるよっていう状況じゃないと去年は厳しかったイメージがあります。でも今年は結構もうロックダウンも解けて働き口もいっぱいあると思うのでできると思うんですけど、なんかサブウェイとかで働いてる人とかいましたね。カフェとか。そんな感じかな、バイトは。
わかりました。ありがとうございます。
はい、Tim. Do you have any opportunity for working at UEA?
Yes, we do. So there's different types of work, of course. It kind of depends what the students are interested in. So some of the degrees have an option for a work placement, which would be the whole year out, where they can do a whole year in industry. They can do that, time away from the university to get some real experience in a company. So that's one option. But then some students might want to do some part-time work. So they might want to work for, 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, something like that, whilst they're doing their study. And yes, we do have opportunities for that as well. So there are jobs in the city centre, so students might want to work in the city, or there's also jobs available on the UEA campus as well. Now, I would always advise students just to be careful about, what kind of job might be suitable for them, what kind of hours would be suitable for them, and then how are they going to be able to manage that with their study as well, because sometimes students, they might want to work too many hours and it starts to affect their study, especially if it's a job with irregular hours as well. So I would say, to answer this, yes, there's the option for the placement for a lot of degrees, but for the kind of part-time work, then there is opportunities available as well. It can be a fantastic experience. I think when you do work during your university experience, you get to know more people, you get to know a different side of kind of UK culture, and you get to increase your kind of network, and you get to have lots of opportunities that you wouldn't have by just being a student on campus all the time. But you'd have to be careful in terms of the commitment between doing a quite intensive undergraduate degree and working at the same time. So yes, many opportunities, but students would have to think about how they could balance that along with their studies as well.
Thank you very much. 他に皆さんいかがですか？質問。こんなチャンスはなかなかないんで。大丈夫そう？
すみません。いいですか？
はいはい、どうぞ。
どうぞ。
怖いじゃない。
どちら様でしょう？はい、どうぞ。
いいですか？はい。
はい。
これ日本語？
どちらでも。
Okay, so I want to ask about the how we choose. Okay, so I want to choose a placement year for the to explain the real society in the company. So how we apply to the company as a experience in the society, in the company. So how we choose that internship
Sure, that's a very good question. So the first thing you can do is when you actually make your UCAS application, you choose, do you want to do just the 3-year degree or degree with a year in industry? There is some flexibility. So if you do choose the year in industry and then decide later you don't want to do that, it is possible to cancel that year. But basically, the thing to do now is to think, would you like to do a placement or not? And then you can put that into your application. When you get to the UK, your actual placement would be between the final year and the second year. So you have lots of time to first get adapted to the UK. You wouldn't be doing a placement right away. The first year is getting used to the subject, getting used to the UK. And then during the second year, you start to plan your placement and to start thinking about what might be a good company to go to. Now, across all of the university, we have a team in the careers team. The careers team is part of Careers Central, and they help students with their employability skills. So they help all students with kind of writing a CV, writing a cover letter, which is the main 2 documents you need to apply for jobs in the UK. And also able to help you find the right opportunity for a job when you graduate, so a graduate job, or in this case, a placement job. So you get lots of support from the Career Central to be able to find your placement opportunity. Now, it also depends on which subject you do. So if you're doing different subjects, they have different opportunities in different sectors. So if you're doing something in economics, for example, it might be quite different to doing something in international development in terms of what are the different placement opportunities and how you would go about the placement. But the basic answer to the question, I would say, is that you don't need to worry about this too much now. Now is thinking about, would you like to do the placement or not? First year is getting used to everything in the UK and just getting more familiar with the subject. So you really don't need to worry about it too much in the first year. And the second year is when you start to think about your placement. You get lots of support from the Career Central team at the university. You also get support from your academic department to help you find the right placement as well. And then you actually do the placement in the in the third year. Now, with the placement, it's competitive. So there might be some very good placement opportunities, and it might be you applying for that and another UEA student or even another student from another university applying for the same placement. So, the more that you have to offer the employer, kind of the better. So that's why we really advise you to take advantage of the support from Career Central to make sure that your application and then your interview preparation is as good as it can be. Maren, is there anything else about placements in Dev that you think students should be aware of?
I would always say, in order to make a decision on what to do, is think big. What is it you are aiming to do post-studies? So what is your long-term career goal? What are you looking to do work-wise? So if you would like to maybe work for a UN agency, then maybe strategically think about the right sort of placement that would be attractive to a future UN type of employer. So I always like to think backwards, it's like, what's your career goal? And then kind of break it down to smaller steps and how to get to that career goal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
大丈夫かな？他に何かご質問ありますか？はい、どうぞ。
This might be a very specific question, but is it okay? I really want to go to UEA and major international development management because I'm interested in social business and working as UN staff in the future. But one thing I'm worried about is that is international development management is enough for future career, because some people suggest me to major international development as bachelor and business as master degree and vice versa. So yeah.
Maybe I can say something to that. So, I mean, the focus on management, development management, we have that focus at the master's level, actually. So, and I think because it's very specific that you're interested in social business and so on. So we will touch on this to a certain degree in the bachelor's, but it's not in sufficient depth, really. So, I mean, again, it depends on the sort of strategy you have. Some people like to have a broader bachelor's degree and then specialize at the master's, or others have a very specialized bachelor already as well. But if you're kind of unsure on which direction you want to go, I always think it's helpful to have maybe a broader or more general bachelor's degree. So you could major in international development, but you could also already have a focal area. You could do international development with economics or with anthropology or with something else. So if you're interested in the business side of things, you could major in international development with economics, and then you could do a master's that really is very specific, just looking at development management and social business, or just do a business master's. So I think in that sense, you could combine both worlds.
Thank you.
Maren, I'd just like to say as well, for this question, I think it's an excellent question. And I'm sure no matter what degree you're thinking of doing, you've all got this kind of decision. Do you want to go for this degree, or do you want to go for this degree, whether it's international development, whether it's business, whether it's psychology? You know, you've got lots of opportunities to be able to do different degrees at the university. And then I think sometimes students think of it in terms of doors closing rather than doors opening. And sometimes students think, if I choose this degree, does that mean I can't do this career? But in reality, it doesn't always work in that way. I think that when you look at kind of graduate jobs, especially in the UK, you know, speaking to my colleagues in Career Central, they said that over 70% of graduate jobs in the UK don't specify the actual degree. So if you do business management, international development, or you do international development, or you do business management, an employer might look at all three of those degrees and think all three of them are great degrees, and you have the transferable skills from all of them to be able to be successful in this role. So I think of it not in terms of choosing this is going to close lots of doors. It's more that it could open doors and give you new study experiences and new things to learn as well. So I think, of course, when you're looking at your degree and having a commitment to go to the UK for 3 years, you want to think about, you know, what could be your job, what could be your career in the future. It's definitely an important thing to think about. But also think about, you know, which subject do you enjoy more? You know, when you look over the course modules, which of those two subjects makes you more interested? You know, when you see those course modules, which is the one that you've got the passion for? And when you've got the passion for an area, you're probably going to be more successful in it, get higher grades, and hopefully get a better quality of degree as well. So the things I would normally look for is kind of, what do you want to do in the future? What are you passionate about? What do you want to learn? And then the other thing is, what are you enjoying, and what are your strengths, and what are you good at the moment? So what is it in your NIC curriculum that you've really enjoyed? What have been your favorite modules or your favorite subject areas? The reason you probably have a favorite for that is because internally you've probably got a passion for that subject area that you might be able to find out more at university level. So I think look at the three things in terms of your interests and your career, what you're good at as well. But normally the decision, should I do this degree or should I do this degree, if they're very similar, and is this going to stop me getting the career I want? I wouldn't tend to think of it in that way. I think look at it really in terms of the whole package. What would be the best suitable major for you?
Okay, thank you. はい。ゆいちゃんがね、そろそろ授業になるんで、ゆいちゃんに質問ある人だけ先にお願いしていいですか? Because of Yui, she has a class today, so I would like to welcome the question to Yui.
Please.
大丈夫そう?大丈夫そうだね。じゃあ、何かゆいちゃんにクエスチョンがあったら、私、宛てにご連絡いただければ、サポートしますんで、つないだりね、しますんで。ゆいちゃん、どうもありがとうございます。
ありがとうございました。
はい。じゃあ、授業、行ってくださいね。
はい。
Thank you very much. はい。他に何かご質問ありますか? どうぞ。せっかくなんでね、こんなチャンスないんで、いろいろわかんないこととか、聞いていただくといいと思います。大丈夫かな?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
I'm planning to go to a graduate school there because I already graduated from a university in Japan. And do I need to take the foundation course before I go there?
I think for this question, it might be best to speak to Michael and Yumiko, just for looking over your kind of transcripts and your grades and what might be the right study pathway for you. Or you're welcome to send us the document and we'll have a look. I think it's a bit difficult to assess, and you know, we're in a big room with many students.
I have already asked his transcript.
Oh, okay, yeah. We'll have a look at the transcript and then we'll advise what's the best kind of study plan for you.
Thank you.
大丈夫そう？大丈夫そう？他に何かご質問とかありますか？はい、大丈夫そう。
ソミヤさん、
はいはい。
ね、今の英語がちょっと早くて全然聞き取れなかったんですけど、なんて言ってたんでしょうか。
とりあえずさ、あなたの場合は、トランスクリプトチェックさせてもらってるじゃん、してもらってるじゃない。はい、だからビジネスの方はいける。マーケティングだけね、行くことは可能。
ビジネスマネジメントの。
そうそうそうそう。っていう返事したじゃん。
あ、それは、
じゃん。
それ見たんですけど、ファンデーションコースとかっていうのは自分にも関係ある？
もしもそのバックグラウンドの少し勉強したいんであれば参加した方がベターです。
でも
ただマストじゃん。マストじゃない。
大学院も9月から始まる。
そうです。9月から始まります。
で、パーソナルステートメントとか
は出さなきゃいけない。
出さなきゃいけない。
はい。
わかりました。そのパーソナルステートメントをこう出すにあたって、落ちるってことも全然あり得るんです。
もちろんあり得ます。だからしっかりしたものを書いてください。そのためにも10月27日にある、マイケルのパーソナルステートメントのセッションには参加する。
わかりました。はい。ありがとうございます。
はい。ありがとうございます。他に何かご質問ある方いらっしゃいますか？
はい。
はい、どうぞ。
ティムさんに。
英語でどうぞ。
はい。I'm wondering to take international development with a year abroad or not. So what country can I go to, like university? What country do you have the connection with?
So with the year abroad, that would be, so you start your course at the University of East Anglia, and then during your program we're to another university across the world. So it would be one of our partner universities. So we have partnerships in quite a broad range of different countries. We've got a lot of partnerships in America. So there's 70 partnerships in the United States and Canada, which is one of the most popular options for students to go to. Similarly, we've got 17 in Australia and New Zealand. So we've got a wide range of university partners across Australia. Then in Europe, we've got over 80 university partners for you to be able to study at. And then we've got partnerships in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, and also in Japan as well. We have over 20 university partnerships in Japan. So we've got lots of different options for you to be able to do your year abroad if that's what you choose to do. They're all different. They will give you a different experience and they'll all give you different skills and different types of universities. What they all do have in common is you'll be taught in English. So even if you're going to a European university or a university in Asia, you'd be expected to be taught in English during your program. So if you have a look on the university website and kind of the UEA Study Abroad, you can see a list of all of the countries and the exact university names, but you've got a wide range of different options for you to be able to study in as well.
Thank you so much.
はい。他には何かご質問とかありますか？そろそろお時間なんでね。大丈夫そう？はい、どうぞ。
I have been track and field for 6 years and I want to do it again. So could you tell me which university have good sports?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the end of the question. Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Okay. I have been track on the field for 6 years and I want to do it again. So could you tell me which university have good sports?
Okay, sure. I can tell you about the kind of sports facilities and the sports club at our university. I think that you've got lots of different university options and I'm only really able to talk about UEA. I think Michael might be the best person to talk to for some of the questions because the NIC is really supporting the application and helping the students make decision and kind of comparing the different universities. So I can't really talk too much about other places, but we've got very good sporting facilities here at the university. We've got the big running track on campus. So I showed you the campus map at the beginning with the sports park and the sports center. In the building there, we've got an Olympic-sized swimming pool and then lots of indoor facilities. Then we've got the outdoor facilities as well. We've got all the kind of tennis courts and hockey courts and all the different courts there. And you'll also see the big running track on campus. So we've got excellent supporting facilities here at the university. Now, it tends to be for most UK universities, for kind of most degrees, is you do your main subject area. You've got quite a narrow focus in your curriculum in the UK. So if you do an international.
Okay, thank you.
はい、大丈夫かな？ティムさんがもしかしたら Wi-Fi 切れちゃったかもしれないんですが、皆さん他にね、ご質問とかある人います？大丈夫そう？
今度上がり、
はいはい
ティムさんに言いたかったんですけど。
ティムさんに言いたかった。そしたらメッセージ、もらえればティムさんにフォワードしておきます。もうちょっと経ったら戻ってくるかもしれないんだけども、とりあえずティムさんがもう今多分 Wi-Fi 切れちゃったんだと思うな。
わかりました。
うん、ごめんね。マレン先生に分かることだったらマレン先生聞いて大丈夫かと。
わかりました。So, is there some opportunity to apply to the United?
固まった。あかりちゃん、ちょっとね、今聞こえなかったんで、もう一回言ってもらっていい？で、誰にって言ってことは聞いた方がいいかもしれない。伝えた方がいいかもしれない。
何でしたっけ？
マレン先生。
マレンさん。Excuse me, Maren. Is there opportunity to apply to the United Nations intern?
Yeah, we have. I mean, that's it depends on the requirements of the various UN agencies. There are quite a few UN agencies. They have slightly different processes, and they're mostly interested in master students. To be honest, they're looking for people who are slightly more at advanced stage of studies. So we did have in the past quite a few actually students either interning at the UN, either globally or in the UK. Actually, we have a Japan alumni at the moment who is, I think, with UNDP in Tokyo, and we have another actually Japanese student who just finished her master's, actually joining UNICEF in Tokyo from January, so as an intern again. So it's largely master students that are actually securing internships with different UN agencies, and that may or may not then lead to further jobs. I'm not sure whether we had undergraduates interning with the UN, maybe at the final stages of the degree again. So I think UN agencies are very keen to have people who are slightly more advanced in their education as interns, because then that may lead up to jobs and so on, and they have limited training they have to do with people who have had a bit more education.
Okay, thank you.
はい、ありがとうございます。大丈夫そうかな？ Thank you, Maren. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity.
No problem.
Have a lovely day today.
Right, yeah.
Thank you. 皆さんも拍手でね、感謝の気持ちを伝えていただければと思います。Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. ありがとうございます。はい、最後に、アンケートの方に移ります。アンケートの、今チャットの方にね、関口さんの方から送っていただきますので、ここでアンケートに答えていただいて終わりになります。広報部の方はこの後ちょこっと残っていただいて、また、例の写真撮ってで、終了という形にさせていただきたいと思います。その間にね、マイケル先生にね、一言、ちょっとメッセージいただけたらと思うんですが。Hi, Michael.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Do you have anything? Could you some message to other students, especially focusing on the your personal statement session and also the NIC Foundation student?
Absolutely. First of all, the lecture that you saw today is a very good example of the type of lecture that you get in a UK university. They generally are very thought-provoking. They make students engage. They make students think about the subject in a much more wider way, and also encourages them to do more research as well. And so hopefully today's experience will encourage you to think about education in the UK, because this is what lectures are like. They're very demanding, and they're delivered by experts in their subjects. So today was an incredible example of being of having a lecture experience from the UK. So that's the first thing I wanted to say, was that if you found that difficult or demanding, exciting, thought-provoking, all of those things, that is exactly what a UK education is at university level. So that was a fantastic experience for you to experience. Secondly, many of the questions that you're asking today, especially about your plans for the future, we must begin to talk to one another. Now, I've met a few students already who are planning to join the foundation course, and that has worked very well. I'll be meeting some more this week, and we're already discussing topics, discussing choices, and also careers thereafter. So hopefully, as the days go by, we can meet more, and we can speak and discuss your university choices, but also start thinking about your personal statement. And next week, I'll be doing a session as well on personal statements. But we can start that process before the talk. The talk is for everybody, but a personal statement is personal. So we need to develop it according to your own needs as well. So one person's personal statement for international development will be very different to another one, because there'll be different ambitions, different experiences, and different ideas. So counselling will be very important over the next few weeks, because we have to get the personal statements absolutely correct for you to be selected for a university course. So I'm looking forward to meeting everybody. I'm hoping that you've benefited from Tim Sand's fantastic introduction again to UEA. Wonderful university. Not simply because it's a high-ranking university, but it's in a beautiful part of the country. It has something for everyone. It's big enough for it to be entertaining and to be interesting and vibrant. It also has a lot of history, but it also can be very quiet as well. It's in the country, so it's good for your soul, for your spirit, for your well-being, as well as your education. But the good thing is, transport links in the UK are excellent, and you can get from Norwich to London or Cambridge. Cambridge is very easy actually from Norwich. So so again, a big thank you to Tim for a wonderful presentation. But presentations don't really give you the true feeling or the true idea of how nice it is. Yumiko-san has been there a couple of times, and it's a really beautiful city, and it's a wonderful place to live, very healthy place to live. So thank you for attending today. I really appreciate it. My email has been given to you by Yumiko. Please email me. Sometimes your inquiries do take a long time, because they're not me who has to give the answer. There are other universities that give the answer. If it's UEA, it's very quick. With some universities, particularly over the last 2 or 3 weeks, because of COVID and people arriving at different times, it's been quite difficult to get answers for general inquiries, but that will get better. So so please please email me with any question. If I can help, I will answer. If I can't, I will find somebody who can help you. So I look forward to hearing from you very soon, and I'll probably see some of you next week in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. And there's one graduate student aiming for the graduate. Would you help him? Thank you. はい、大丈夫かな？